My name is Davide, and I'm an engineering manager at CoachHub. And I'm also an accredited leadership and life coach, and I'm personally still studying to get the ICF certificate. So I'm quite passionate also around coaching and all these topics. So for the next 20 minutes, I would like to share a bit about my personal experience around well-being and how this shaped my perspective about it. And also why I believe this is important to us as software developers, especially. So I started my career as a software developer around 10 years ago, more or less, and I moved to Berlin a couple of years later. And moving here in Berlin, I'm still here, by the way, moving here wasn't that easy. So I went through a cultural change, and also I had difficulties integrating because of the language barrier. And I also was going through a pretty intense, let's say, breakup with my ex-partner at the time. All of this was happening when I joined a new company and a new team with new language and all this stuff. And at the time, I wasn't really used to sharing myself or how I was feeling. So I was kind of hiding and trying to keep myself together, let's say, going through such challenges alone. And this, I think, made my integration into the team way more challenging. And in my perspective, I was also not performing at my best, right? And this was leading me to feel guilty. And I believe this also was bringing me into this spiral of feeling guilty and underperforming, feeling guilty and underperforming. Looking back to what I find, what I was very grateful for, though, was that I found a team and an environment that was very supportive. Regardless of my temporary low energy or low performance period, I found a team and the managers that were not really, I didn't have to explain myself that much, and I was finding this environment that I just found support and understanding. And I believe that this support and no pressure mentality helped me a lot going through that period in a safe way. And I also think that helped me getting out of it in a much faster way. So, and after that, I asked myself many times, what would have happened if I wouldn't have felt in a safe team? Because I kind of had, for me, the team was kind of my safe harbor. The company was kind of my safe harbor while I was challenged by what was happening in my personal life, let's say. And I believe this was even more meaningful for me being a software developer, because my profession and our profession as software developers in general is quite rational and pressure sensitive. And also, even more important, I would say, at least for me, it's that there is very little human interaction. And this, I think, is also one of the reasons that influenced my not being very open to share what I was going through with others. And this not only in the team, by the way, this was in general my way of reacting into these circumstances. But anyway, having a team environment that felt safe was crucial for me. Of course, I'm not saying that this is the only thing, right? This was not the solution, having a safe environment and a manager that supported me through the process of feeling better. A very important piece of this, of course, has been that I started taking care of myself in several ways. At the time I started therapy, I did several workshops around self-development or personal development. I started yoga, meditation, reading, climbing, biking. I started creating a deeper connection with my friends, traveling, and also coaching. I didn't do all these things at the same time, of course. I mean, I spread them across a certain period of time that helped me getting out of that period, right? And what I also realized at some point is that during this process, I didn't really realize what was happening, right? I was just doing things that felt better and I was starting to feel better. But then at some point, I kind of started reflecting back, and this reflection back, I did them especially when I started to get into therapy first and then coaching afterwards. Having a person external, let's say, person perspective that supported me into reflecting on what happened, why I got better, really helped. And this also made me come, let's say, to a realization, what are the main aspects that played a role into me feeling better and also performing better in a way, and things that also supported me into my career development. And for me, the self-reflection, and I would like to quote here John Dewey, it was very important to learn from the experience. And he says, we do not learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. And this is very important, was very important for me in general. And the realization that I came about these aspects that played a role into my well-being were the self, what I call the self and the environment. So when I'm talking about the self, I'm referring to the mind, to my body, to my emotional state, to my level of stress, to my self-love. So everything that is in my world, so to say. Whereas for the environment is everything else, right? The rest, everything that is happening out there. So we can say, I don't know, the weather, or there is a change on the roadmap in the middle of the sprint, or someone is joining the team. I get a new manager. I don't know, I go to my favorite restaurant and the food that they bring is not as well as the other times, or there is a big release and we make a big release which has no bugs, for example, which it's utopic for the developers, but that's a thing that can happen. Anyway, anything that happens outside of us, so that is, let's say, outside of our control, it's what I would call as an environment. And in my opinion, in a workplace, in a work environment, both aspects need to be taken care of. Now, going back to the self, since, as I said, all that happens out there is out of our control, I believe that everything else, so what happens within us, it's under our control in a way. It can be very challenging, but we can say that if we're not feeling great, or something is not working well for us, we do have the possibility to change it, right? And in a way, we can say that we have the possibility to feel the way we want to feel. And it's our responsibility to take care of ourselves. And this goes from the most basic needs. I'm trying to change the slides. From the most basic needs, such as, we're hungry and we want to eat. So if we're thirsty, we drink. If we need to go to the toilet before we explode, we just do it. Or to the most challenging ones, like, for example, defining boundaries, and then communicating them, or expressing our emotions, how we're feeling, and being honest or being authentic, right? And what helped me with especially the challenging ones has been definitely coaching and even therapy in the first place, starting understanding what were my boundaries and starting to communicate them, learning to express how I was feeling, my emotions, and also being authentic. It's definitely something that I went through a process, and coaching really was a big help. And so a word that I said before is that it's our responsibility to take care of ourselves, right? And I really like this word, responsibility. Taking responsibility is, for me, is the ability to respond to the events that happens to us in a way that serves us the best. I'd like to say that again, that responsibility is our ability to respond to the events that happen to us in a way that serves us the best. And so for me, this is very important. This also connects me to, let's say, the environment topic that I wanted to mention, because there are things that happen to us, right? And they have an impact on us. And before getting there, I would like to quote also Amelia Nagoski. She wrote a book around burnout, and she says that the cure for burnout is not self-care. It is all of us caring for each other. We don't do it alone. We need each other. Now, we don't want to get to a burnout situation at all, right? And I'm not even talking about avoiding burnout here. But still, from her words, we can say that having a safe environment really can support us into feeling good. And feeling good or feeling happy supports us into performing at our best. And I believe that it's definitely the management and company responsibility to make sure that all employees are feeling safe to speak up, so that they're safe, basically feeling safe to be authentic in a way. Now, I don't have the recipe to create a the safest environment possible, but through my experience and observations, let's say, I would like to share with you what I would say are my highlights, what I think is very important, though, to create a safer environment in a way. And the very first thing that for me, it's really important is to create an environment that is non-judgmental. When feeling judged is something that really makes us feel unsafe. And I really perceive that on myself a lot. It's something that I'm very aware of it, that whenever I notice some judgments, I tend to feel unsafe in that place. And for example, I don't know if it's something that you can resonate with, but when I make an experience, I tend to select the friends that I share that with, or family members. I don't do that very consciously. I just realized that afterwards, that with some people, I just avoid sharing some experiences. And I was always wondering, why do I do that? And I came to the conclusion that I think either I heard these friends or people criticizing or judging other people about the same experiences or similar ones, or maybe I received a judgment about them. So I start to just not share those things anymore. That's what happens. And this happens in teams as well, right? It's very common that if I'm criticizing a colleague of mine in front of another colleague, or I'm talking bad about another colleague, this person I'm talking to in that moment might feel unsafe around me afterwards. So I really invite to not judge. I think it brings not much value in general. I mean, of course, constructive feedback is a different topic, right? I'm really talking about judgments here. And also to make sure that there are no judgments happening in our teams. Another aspect which I find also very important is clarity. Here I would like to quote Brené Brown. She says, "Clear is kind, unclear is unkind." I deeply believe in that as well. And it's our role as management to make sure that we create transparency as much as possible, of course. And I know it's not easy. And especially when it comes to the people development, right? It's a lot of work in a way, and it's not an easy one, but I think it's worth the effort to make it as clear as possible on how to achieve a certain goal for one of our team members. And this improves, in my opinion, performance, because people know what they're doing and they feel safer in a way, and they will definitely perform better, right? And they will feel happier. That's also what I wanted to say. And the next aspect, it's listen. This comes definitely from my coaching experience a little bit. And for me, when I experienced a coach and even a therapist in the first time, I started to feel for the first time really listened to, because many times in normal conversations, we have a tendency to listen, to respond, or to give our opinion or suggestion. And I try my best every time I'm working with my team members, with my colleagues, to try to really listen to them and not jump on advices right away. And I personally notice that when someone is really listening to me, I start to come up with more opinions, and I start to share my opinions. I feel safer to share my opinions. And that's why I think it's very important to learn to listen and to really sit with the people. And once we listen and we hear feedbacks, or we get these inputs from them, the next aspect which connects to this would be to take action. And so to do something about it, right? Whenever there is a complaint or something that is not working well, it's making people not feel great, we need to take action. Well, we can also not take action consciously. And when we do, let's be clear about it. So those three can maybe be very much connected between them, but it's clear it's important to communicate that why we're taking that action, that it's maybe triggered by something that was shared, and being clear on why we're not taking action, for example. Anyway, all of this, as I said, it's a bit my experience and my perspective. And I was asking myself if this is just my point of view, or if there is anything that backs up my perspective. And like I tried to check in science if there was such a thing, and I found a little bit of connection with positive psychology. Positive psychology, for those who don't know, it's a science, and I will try to explain in my words, in very few words, but positive psychology is trying to explain basically, or to prove with science, let's say, what makes people happy in a way. It's very simplified as an explanation, but here there is a definition of positive psychology, which maybe it's more clear, which says that positive psychology is the study of the conditions and processes that contribute to the flourishing or optimal functioning of people, groups, and institutions. So in a way, as I said, it's trying to find those processes and conditions again that make people happy, right? Because if we think about it, happiness, it can be very different perceived by all of us, but there are some things in common. And that's what positive psychology is proving. And what I wanted to bring here is one of the models that came out of positive psychology, which is called the PERMA model. This model is basically shows some of the aspects which worked on when they're working on the increases well-being, and they make people just happy in a way. And I won't go in details for each one of them, but I would like to at least very briefly introduce all of them. So One of them is positive emotion, and with this includes hope, interest, joy, love, compassion, gratitude, and ways to build it is basically trying to spend time with people that we really care about, or doing activities that we really enjoy, like hobbies, and also reflecting on things that we're grateful for. And with this, I connecting to my previous experience that I shared before, when I started to do, I don't know, climbing or reading and all these things, they were things that really supported me in a way. And even reflecting back on those things really helped. Then there is engagement. Engagement, it's basically those activities that I imagine most of us have experienced, that there are some activities that when we do, we kind of lose track, right? And that seems like that doing those really supports us into feeling better. And for us as developers, for example, many times happens that we are trying to solve an algorithm or problem and we really lose track of time. And so it seems to be beneficial. Then there is positive relationships. The name is quite clear, I hope already, in a way. So invitation would be to try to find or joining classes or groups that interest us, so that we can find common ground with other people, trying to deepen connections with people. That is also very helpful. Trying spending time with people we feel very connected with. Then there is meaning. And with meaning is basically belonging or serving something greater than ourselves. And this we can do it by getting involved in a cause or an organization that really matters to us, or even trying to do creative activities to find things that we are really connected with. This is also a way to try to find things that are important to us. Then there is accomplishments and achievements, and this is about basically defining goals which we can actually achieve, and even small goals, and working towards them. And also reflecting on past successes is very important as well, because we do have a tendency to find things that didn't really work out, or things that we never made, but there are a lot of things that we have achieved until now, and reflecting back, it's also very important. And then there is the plus part, which is basically physical activity. There is a lot of studies and that prove that doing physical activities make people feel just happier. Live optimistically. So optimism is basically a positive emotion critical to building resilience and well-being. Then we have nutrition. Even here, there is a significant research amount of research demonstrating a relationship between diet and mental health. And then eventually there is sleep. So having deep sleep fosters mental and emotional resilience, and even sleep deprivation in general. Many of us might know that. I personally experienced that leads to negative thinking and also emotional vulnerability.
Is Patrick Rutter. I am an organizational psychologist, currently working as a senior behavioral scientist for CoachUp, and I'm usually proud to be a part of an organization where the heartbeat defends and enriches the value of coaching towards the workplace. In the mission of democratizing coaching towards employees across all career levels worldwide, my specific responsibility is to bridge the science practitioner gap. And I do this in order to serve clients, partners, organizations that really want to make a difference for their workforce and a competitive advantage in both leadership as well as profitable business transformation, and to leverage the power of coaching in this context. Today, I have the honor to close this event and humbly invite you to our last topic, keynote for tonight, titled Developer Reflexivity. And I hope that I do justice to David's beautiful anecdote and presentation and build further on this with insights on the importance of reflection at work, with a specific highlight of the IT professional group of employees. What are the main challenges that from your point of view exist in the developer population of your organization? Please feel free to start providing input. And in case there's any technical problem of joining or a challenge, please highlight this in the chat so my colleagues can pick that up. Deadlines. Thank you so much. We have our first additional input, and I hope to see a lot more. Excellent. I'll give 60 more seconds. By that time, I feel we had enough time to provide some inputs. Do not feel limited, do not feel shy. Please open up and brainstorm about possible pressures, challenges that your developers are facing. The working pressure, prioritization, communication, business IT, within business, time pressure, deadlines, the business pressure, technical knowledge of, I assume, also the colleagues outside of the IT organization. Bugs, or do we call them features? Thank you so much. One thing that stands out at this point already is time pressure and deadlines. And I hope to return to these 2 points also later in this presentation. Let us talk about the big elephant in the room. I would like to call it mental health. Mental health as an absolute hard, for many professionals, hard to grasp construct, not just in the professional sense, but as well in your individual definition. While it's maybe hard to grasp, it is a true business issue. We see it's mostly boiling below the surface. And if we discover it, often it is quite at a late stage. Why is that so? Why are we not able to grab it by the throat and make it work? Why can we not address it as easy as another element that is maybe more apparent? I would like to first of all define this what is mental health. And if you agree with me, let us go for now with the WHO definition of mental health, which states that it is a state of mental and psychological well-being in which I can realize my own true potential, cope with the normal stresses of life, work productively and fruitfully, and I am able to make a contribution to my direct and indirect environment, my community, be it in the professional arena or in my private life. If we agree that this definition captures roughly what we are looking for if we try to define mental health, I would like to take you on another step, a step into a myth busting around the construct of mental health. There seem to be a lot of myths surrounding this construct, and mental health at work, while we all acknowledge its importance, still seems to be limited in the realization towards a true approach of safeguarding mental health and well-being of our employees, partially due to such myths still finding platform in our organizations. I would like to raise a couple of examples, such as mental health problems are rare. Actually, one of the main causes of the overall disease burden worldwide is relatable or can be drawn back to mental health problems. This means that not just in a professional environment, no, in a complete holistic point of view, mental health problems are an absolute important subject to manage. The cost is per employee were calculated at giving pounds to euros, about 1,500 euros per employee per year on average. So it really outlines that this is an absolute important measure to take in your organization, to highlight the importance, but also to be aware about the complex fields in your organization that contribute to a good mental health. One more thing that I would like to raise out of this myth sheet is the last point. Mental health conditions affect people the same way, and let me maybe add as another provocation, they surface in the same way for everyone. And I think we can all agree and look each other in the eyes that this is not true. Every individual deals differently with mental health problems, detects them at a certain point or later, and they surface in the behaviors and thought streams of individuals in completely different ways. One important aspect, if we look at a gender point of view, is that we need to realize employed women are twice as likely to have a mental health problem as men in their tenure. This really calls one more time for a strong equity and fair approach to workplace design, and the importance of enabling all our employees, regardless of gender, in their daily work to flourish and become and reach their full potential. Because the wound is already wide open and our fingers are already in there, let us take out some euro, or in this case pound signs, next to it. The business case is clear. We have a huge cost of poor mental health to employers. Currently, it is in a study from, this is actually 2017, not taking into account the additional pressures put on top by, for example, the pandemic and new ways of working that arise from this. A 33 to 42 billion pound bill to the businesses in the UK, ranging on its to the UK economy a damage of between 74 and 99 billion pounds. Incredible numbers, especially if we see that solutions that proactively intervene and support employees in mental health and well-being have a ROI of a factor of 6 to 1. And I would like to challenge us to find a more profitable investment on a short term. So we are aware mental health is an important subject, and of course our people leaders and HR professionals have not stood still. McKinsey has last year released a report in which they found that 96% of the companies globally have made changes to their HR policies and increased the employee resources in an attempt to support and refill the needs that the employee carries towards their mental or physical well-being. Only 1 in 6 employees, however, reported feeling supported. This is an important difference, and we need to be clear what this gap constitutes. This is a clear call to individualization of support and an eye-to-eye conversation on the needs of every individual concerning their well-being and mental health. Taking the perspective of coaching, a study of Grant Thornton also has provided us with the insight that leaders in the context of coaching report well-being as the primary value of focus in the context of well-being. Hence, it is recognized, and for the specific intervention of coaching, well-being is more important than ever before. So what does poor mental health look like? Of course, taking and hopefully building further on the incredibly valuable inputs by Davide, I would like to think about ways where people think, feel, and behave differently. Their ability to cope is strongly compromised, and this has backlashes for both private and professional life. My focus is not the same. My conversations change. The tone of my conversations change, and my perception becomes more pessimistic. This downward spiral reinforces itself. I am not happy with my output. I am aware I'm not feeling well, and maybe I feel ashamed. Maybe it just annoys me. But these are negative feelings that reinforce each other, and which in turn have backlashes on our private relationships, the quality of our life, and the quality of our work. While these signs may be more or less apparent depending on the individual, it's very hard to start acting. One of the first measures is, of course, to be aware that this is happening. And we see that also there's a stigma as well as a environmental and individual aspect within that, in which people do not feel comfortable enough to generally share inputs with their management about their mental health and well-being. So, taking the industry snapshot, I would like to focus now specifically on a developer or IT professional population. What we see here already for in an older study is that telework as a principle does not necessarily change the balance and the various the kind of tasks that the developer is working on a daily rhythm. What we do see is various observations on whether there's more meeting pressure or maybe less meetings due to them being more efficient. This can have organizational reasons, the amount of teams that you work together with. So there's a bit of controversy which aspects do really change and if there is one theme that can be identified here. But what we are aware of, and what I'm sure you heard in so many keyword notes already, the impact of the working from home on the work-life integration. With that said, there's a dynamic working from home that is added to the complexity and pressures that a developer faces day to day. This layer is reinforced by a transformation pressure. Companies and full industries are transforming more digital, leaner processes, other ways of working, agile, scrum ways of working. And with that, we have a groundwork on which complexities like a high dependence on development and a higher volume with lower quality of demands have a breeding ground for stressors and strain factors for the developer population. And I would like to draw on a research that is quite old, 2005 to be exact, where Charette identified already why so many IT projects and IT transformations fail. To your right, you see also a snapshot of the hall of shame of software and the amounts of financial resources that we see here depicted. We can assume what this picture looks like in 2021 and will look like in the future years. What is the source of all this movement of failing IT transformations? And many of these themes still echo through to the day of today. We see unrealistic or unarticulated project goals, really inaccurate estimates or required resources, and poorly defined requirements. Ambiguity as compared to clarity, as Davide already mentioned. Ambiguity will not help us in maintaining a healthy working life. So it is about the articulation of needs. We need mental health. We need to focus on mental health. And there is more focus. We see industries and specific companies that are spearheading this movement, creating full-blown modules, models that try to frame how a developer's mental health and reflection framework could look like. Reflection is recognized and more being recognized as one of the central buffers to allow mental health and well-being to flourish. With more movement towards Scrum, continuous development practice, we see more self-management and less formal leadership. From that perspective, I would like to coin that it's more than natural to also support the self-management and lack of formal leadership with a complementary skill set of self-reflection. There has to be someone to turn to other than yourself, and your environment that is skilled and that can leverage coaching techniques will allow you to grow, to harness yourself against impacts to your mental health and well-being, and to let you flourish in your daily work. We see to the top right one of the models, and this is Nitor, a fast-paced development firm, and they tried to see what are my developers that are highly self-organized facing, and on which aspects can we guide their self-reflection. Truly remarkable, and something that I would like to advise. Have a look at it. Have a look at how can you support self-reflection in your organization, or contact us and find out. With a table below, we see that also, and here the theme returns, time management is one of the most important and most popular improvement factors in the context of well-being. And we have the numbers to back this up with from our end as well. Just to come back to this study here, reflexivity at work, the mechanism of reflecting and acting on my reflection showed that the awareness, that there's increase in awareness of productive and unproductive work habits. Making me aware about what works and what doesn't work in my job is the first step to be able to act and to create new working patterns that are fulfilling, less stressful, and more productive. Next to that, this positive self-improvement increases my productivity and well-being. Also, almost 80% of the respondents within this study can confirm. And of course, this has a side effect. With coaching in my organization, I foster the root of a culture of coaching, a culture of voluntary, lasting, and continuous self-reflection. I have this slide here, and this slide shows to you one snapshot of our well-being framework, which we developed purely with the recognition of the need for dedicated framework of coaching for the subject of well-being. And what you see here is an outcome, a short report of an aggregate average, which focus areas are chosen to develop oneself. Time management being one of the top runners here. This is in line with the research that we just reviewed together, and just shows how much importance time management and the stress, the working pressure mentioned by you in our mentee exercise really matter, and how close we are to reality if we realize that this is an absolute factor that we should deal with. So how can we support our colleagues to arm themselves towards working pressure, and to, next to that, let them flourish and reach their full potential? We designed, as I said, a Coach Up Wellbeing framework, and with this framework, we answer a demand on the market across organizations in which employees are in dire need to work on their professional, personal, and well-being aspects. After our coaching intervention, these programs nurture the employees, and we see a response of this. McKinsey and Esrich Executive Education also have measured the response and the results of coaching in an organizational environment. And 91% of the coachees find meaning again, meaning 91% did not have a clear meaning to that work in the baseline measure. 48% reached new levels of self-awareness and were able to reduce their stress successfully and consistently. 70% of team spirit effect, in which the collegial, the psychological safety comes to mind, as well as 60% more engagement rating. And I think these are numbers that, purely leaving the financial aspects behind, already show the need for coaching. So, one individual anecdote I would like to share with you to finish off is my coaching journey was brilliant and eye-opening. It helped me a lot in a very difficult and challenging stage of my personal and professional life. And we see that the range, the coaching is the only method that supports goal setting and performance, but also well-being at the same time. And of course, there's a growing body of scientific research that demonstrates the significant individual outcomes of coaching, amongst which goal-regulated self-regulation, higher performance, work-related attitudes that become more positive, and a well-being and stress management that is not comparable to any other means of tooling or resource that you can offer your employees. That being said, I would like to invite you to click Coaching Exe, execute the coaching program, and make sure that we can unleash the full potential and deploy democratized coaching to the world.